The following is an excerpt from the book Journey to Ixtlan, where Don Juan teaches Carlos how to use death as an advisor. Coming up on this episode of All Things Perceptual. "How did you know about the white falcon?" I asked when I had finished. "I saw it," he replied. "Where?" "Right here in front of you." I was not in an argumentative mood anymore. "What does all this mean?" I asked. He said that a white bird like that was an omen, and that not shooting it down was the only right thing to do. "Your death gave you a little warning," he said with a mysterious tone. "It always comes as a chill." "What are you talking about?" I said nervously. He really made me nervous with his spooky talk. "You know a lot about birds," he said. "You've killed too many of them. You know how to wait. You have waited patiently for hours. I know that. I am seeing it." His words caused great turmoil in me. I thought that what annoyed me the most about him was his certainty. I could not stand his dogmatic assuredness about the issues in my own life that I was not sure of myself. I became engulfed in my feelings of dejection, and I did not see him leaning over me until he actually had whispered something in my ear. I did not understand it at first, and he repeated it. He told me to turn around casually and look at a boulder to my left. He said that my death was there staring at me, and if I turned when he signaled me, I might be capable of seeing it. He signaled me with his eyes. I turned, and I thought I saw a flickering movement over the boulder. A chill ran through my body. The muscles of my abdomen contracted involuntarily, and I experienced a jolt, a spasm. After a moment I regained my composure, and I explained away the sensation of seeing the flickering shadow as an optical illusion caused by turning my head so abruptly. "Death is our eternal companion," Don Juan said with a most serious air. "It is always to our left, at an arm's length. It was watching you when you were watching the white falcon. It whispered in your ear, and you felt its chill, as you felt it today. It has always been watching you. It always will, until the day it taps you." He extended his arm and touched me lightly on the shoulder, and at the same time made a deep clicking sound with his tongue. The effect was devastating. I almost got sick to my stomach. "You're the boy who stalked game and waited patiently as death waits. You know very well that death is to our left, the same way you were to the left of the white falcon." His words had the strange power to plunge me into an unwarranted terror. My only defense was my compulsion to commit to writing everything he said. "How can anyone feel so important when we know that death is stalking us?" he asked. I had the feeling my answer was not really needed. I could not have said anything anyway. A new mood had possessed me. "The thing to do when you're impatient," he proceeded, "is to turn to your left and ask advice from your death. An immense amount of pettiness is dropped if your death makes a gesture to you, or if you catch a glimpse of it, or if you just have the feeling that your companion is there watching you." He leaned over again and whispered in my ear that if I turned to my left suddenly, upon seeing his signal, I could again see my death on the boulder. His eyes gave me an almost imperceptible signal, but I did not dare to look. I told him that I believed him, and that he did not have to press the issue any further because I was terrified. He had one of his roaring belly laughs. He replied that the issue of our death was never pressed far enough, and I argued that it would be meaningless for me to dwell upon my death since such a thought would only bring discomfort and fear. "You're full of crap," he explained. "Death is the only wise advisor that we have. Whenever you feel, as you always do, that everything is going wrong, and you are about to be annihilated, turn to your death, and ask if that is so. Your death will tell you that you're wrong, that nothing really matters outside its touch. Your death will tell you, I haven't touched you yet." He shook his head and seemed to be waiting for my reply. I had none. My thoughts were running rampant. He had delivered a staggering blow to my egotism. The pettiness of being annoyed with him was monstrous in light of my death. I had the feeling he was fully aware of my change of mood. He had turned the tide in his favor. He smiled and began to hum a Mexican tune. "Yes," he said softly after a long pause. "One of us here has to change, and fast. One of us here has to learn again that death is the hunter, and that it is always to one's left. One of us here has to ask death's advice and drop the cursed pettiness that belongs to men that live their lives as if death will never tap them." We remained quiet for more than an hour. Then we started walking again. We meandered in the desert chaparral for hours. I did not ask him if there was any purpose to it. It did not matter. Somehow he made me recapture an old feeling, something I had quite forgotten. The sheer joy of just moving around without attaching any intellectual purpose to it. I wanted him to let me catch a glimpse of whatever I had seen on the boulder. "Let me see that shadow again," I said. "You mean your death, don't you?" he replied with a touch of irony in his voice. For a moment I felt reluctant to voice it. "Yes," I finally said. "Let me see my death once again." "Not now," he said. "You're too solid." "I beg your pardon?" He began to laugh, and for some unknown reason his laughter was no longer offensive and insidious as it had been in the past. I did not think that it was different from the point of view of its pitch or its loudness or the spirit of it. The new element was my mood. In view of my impending death, my fears and annoyance were nonsense. End of passage. Do you think you could use death as an advisor? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if this is your first time here, I would be honored to have you as a subscriber on YouTube, where you can get more videos about opening your perception to new arenas for exploration. New videos come out on Mondays, so until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.